Greetings to all. This is the Caravan to Midnight, the John B. Wells program. I am John B. in the left seat of the Ark Midnight, hovering over the epicenter of the world, crossroads of crisis. Pick one. What a week it has been. I suspect we'll have a week like this next week as well, and for the foreseeable future, each and every week as things get ever more interesting. Of course, a lot of, there's a lot of news out there that can be construed as disturbing or, oh boy, here's some more of that. But it really isn't all that disturbing depending on how you look at it. Now, personally, if something bad is on its way, and we're all just kind of sitting around our lawn chairs oblivious to it, and then it hits us, that's disturbing. But if we're sitting around in our lawn chairs and someone presents themselves and says, "Hey, there's a terrible storm coming this way," it's like, oh, well, let's get ready for it. It's not like, oh, you mean I'm wringing my hands now for those of you who are listening rather than seeing it also. Oh, there's a storm coming. I don't know what we're going to do. Oh, that's just stupid. So I've said this a bunch of times over the past few weeks. No hand-wringing. Let's just recognize what we're dealing with and then deal with it. That's all. Now, I'm not going to tell you that that I read my Bible every day, because it's simply not true. But I do read it. And the word glory came to my mind, and I thought, what is glory anyway? So I consulted with Mr. Ghost, and I asked him what his definition of it was, and he told me. So in the end, it's and I agreed that his definition was a good one. Recognition, praise, credit. If you go through, let's take it down to earthly terms. If you're out there with your little short sword and you're wailing on the enemy, but you save your people, save your family, save your community from these horrible, murderous, barbaric invaders. Well, you come trudging back home to glory, which is what? Praise, recognition, and credit for saving the crew. So yes, I completely agree that all of the glory, all of the praise, all of the credit for everything goes to Almighty God. And we are His creations. We are on this earth, which is also a creation of God. And we have these earthly problems because we simply will not stay on the path to abundance, peace, and the prosperity that goes with it. Oh yeah, but you're leaving out the weather problems. Well, you adapt to things. Again, this is an earthly life. There will be birth, there will be life, and there will be death. The eternal life comes later. And that, of course, is after the Savior returns. It's my understanding, and those are the words, it is my understanding, that nobody's going to heaven until the Savior returns. In the meantime, what do? Keep our eyes up, our faith strong, our allegiance to our Creator, and don't lean on our own understanding of things. We can discuss them, we can recognize problems and deal with them as best we can. I think few will deny that one of the best ways to deal with a problem is through prayer. And just ask, just allow yourself to hear, allow yourself to be guided, and allow yourself to have the patience to wait, because sometimes the solution to your problems is going to take a little while. It's not like, some cartoon where somebody sprinkles fairy dust over something and instantly it's okay. And then other times, and I've lived this one, you can be snatched from the jaws of absolute, complete annihilation just like that. Look, pal, you're dead. Now look, you're not. Understand? Yeah. Not really sure you completely understand. I'm not convinced. Let's go through some more tests. And you agree. I don't want to be tested. I'm not very strong. Yeah, but I'll make you strong. You will? Yeah. So I should not fear the test. You should not want the test, nor if the test is upon you, should you fear the test. If your faith is strong. If it's not, then you got plenty to fear. Now that's the end of the sermon. And let's get to some other things here. Well, it's not quite the end of the sermon. The Great Deception. There are many interpretations as to what the Great Deception might be. And I've said this before on this program and others. I believe we are living in the Great Deception right now. The beautiful thing about it is that the fact that we're being deceived and have been deceived is being revealed more by the day. And we're going to find out exactly who is Jonathan Reich, why is he on the program, what does he want to talk about. I suspect he's had something of the governmental, how shall we put it? I think he's felt a wee little bit of the governmental jackboot on his neck. That's what I'm thinking, but I have not spoken with him before. As you know, we've spoken with Wolfgang Halbig. He is, in fact, the tip of the lance on the whole Sandy Hook investigation. He's the one who had police officers come to his house, states and states and states away, to inform him that they're going to file charges on you if you don't stop asking questions. Well, that ticked him off big time, and that's putting it really diplomatically and mildly. He has now embarked on an expensive, time-consuming, in some ways all-consuming quest to uncover every detail of the fraud that is the Sandy Hook school shooting. Welcome, gentlemen, Wolfgang and Jonathan. It's good to have you with us. We're ready for an update, so just let us have it. Wolfgang, when we rang you up a minute ago on the Skype, I heard you saying, well, thank you very much. You've been helpful as usual. I could tell there wasn't a note of sincerity in it. I said, okay, what was that all about? Do you want to say hi and then tell us what that was all about? Nothing like just bringing you on the program, start firing questions right away, right?
Yeah, I do. I want to say hi and all the caravanners. I really, I just can't tell you how much I appreciate everything that you've done for me and Jonathan. And I say Jonathan because you've made a difference. And you'll see after today's program why I'm saying that. A lot of great information out there. It's factual. We expect to be held accountable for everything that we post and say because I cannot afford to be wrong. John, you know I've got grandkids. I want to leave something for them to be proud of. I want them to see their grandfather, do something in trying to help America and people who deserve the truth.
Yeah, I just had to linger on those words for a minute. Yeah, it is. We were talking earlier about how it's not about just us. It's about the people that come behind us.
Yes.
And, I keep thinking about how, I can't remember who said it, maybe it was Orwell, probably, it might not have been, but the thing about history the lies will become history if they're allowed to become.
Well, you started out your program today talking about the two homicide investigators coming to my house threatening me.
Yeah.
Well, it was about 2 weeks later, I saw a news article about a young man named Jonathan Reich, and I could not believe, that here I've been a state trooper, customs agent, principal. I have dealt with children being arrested. I've been in the court system. I know how the court system works. I mean, there is no doubt I understand. And I started reading about him, and I just had to call him. What they have done to him, they have violated, as you will see today, every constitutional right that a person could actually have. And the way we want to go about it is for the caravanners, to everyone across this world who's listening to this program, just think if that was your son or your daughter, and that's how he or she's being treated in the state of Connecticut.
Wolfgang, I'm going to let you conduct this portion of the interview. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to I'll get it rolling with a prompt questions like, Jonathan, who are you and why are you in, shall we say, league with Wolfgang Halbig? And it would follow, how is it that you are here with us on this episode of Caravan to Midnight?
Hi, John, and thanks a lot for having me on your program today.
It's good to have
I'm
you.
just a student, that had a few questions about the Sandy Hook event, and it's really taken a lot out of my family, out of my life, and cost me a lot at this point.
What did you ask? What happened? What got your attention about it? What caused you to become involved in it at all? Why were you not just sitting there going, "Wow, that's a terrible thing," and just go on with your life? What attracted you to this problem?
Well, what attracted me to it was that I found a couple images that were mislabeled, and I found the source images for those. And what I did was I dialed up one of the charities and asked them for an explanation. They turned it around and had the police called, and there were about 100 phone calls placed to my home. Several NYPD officers were dispatched to my home. They came, they said that I didn't do anything wrong, and they wanted to ask a few questions and make sure that there were no more phone calls, and that was that.
You said NYPD in New York?
Yes.
Okay, you're in New York.
Yes.
Okay, keep going.
After that happened, I received about 100 phone calls from the Avon Police Department. They were calling my family members' cell phones, my home phone.
Now, where is Avon?
It's in Connecticut.
Okay, keep going.
And eventually on 5/17/2013, they called me up and they explained that I was pending arrest on a $250,000 bond. However, if I drove into Connecticut, approximately 200 miles away from my home, into another jurisdiction, then the bond would be $50,000. At that point, we hired a law firm called Pullman and Comley in Connecticut, and they scheduled an appointment for that next Monday, on 5/20 to be turned into the police. At that point, they did not send an attorney from their firm to represent me. I was intimidated by the police officers at the station, forced to sign several documents at that point with no legal counsel present. Over the course of 2 years, this law firm has billed my family about $40,000. When this charge is a Class C misdemeanor, equivalent to a parking violation, with a maximum fine of $500 with a conviction.
Well, what is the charge exactly?
It's a Class C misdemeanor phone harassment charge.
And this was because you asked a question.
Yes.
And what was the question?
There were several questions. I was questioning one of the charities and the medical examiner's office regarding a letter that they had written to try to gain confirmation that pediatric autopsies would not be disclosed to the public. That was in 2011 that they had written that letter to gain confirmation about that. And that was actually left out of the police report. They don't want people to discuss that letter by the medical examiner, Wayne Carver.
I don't get it. 2011.
The police then proceeded with their arrest, and they violated several court procedures, including the procedure to provide an arrest warrant affidavit at the time of arrest, and they violated the judge's own 2-day rule of arraignment. They arraigned me on 6/5/2013. And in the meantime, during that time period, they published about 40 news articles about me across the country, which were patently false. So on several of the articles, the title of the article claims that I was charged with threatening Sandy Hook families. And then in the content of the article, they claim that I was charged with threatening the medical examiner. And there's actually a news outlet called HartfordCommunityCourt.com, and they've apparently obtained these phone calls. And there was no threatening taking place. And I'm pretty sure that they're going to be releasing those in the near future.
But John, what I want to make sure that the listeners don't lose sight of what's happening to Jonathan. Think about this. He was charged for a second-degree misdemeanor. It's called phone harassment. Now, if I were to call my Pizza Hut manager here in Florida in the middle of the night
And tell him he's an alpha hole or something, right?
Am I going to get a $50,000 bail? And what we found out and everything we're about to share with you, Governor Dan Malloy's son, Ben Malloy, was arrested for armed robbery with a firearm. He was also arrested for firearm possession. Both are serious felonies. You know what his bail was? $2,500. We have another one. We have an attorney, a super attorney in Connecticut. He strangled his wife, disorderly conduct. His bail was $10,000. Jonathan makes a phone call, phone harassment, and his bail is $50,000. I think that's excessive. And the other thing is, when you look at community court, the guidelines are carved in stone. If you're assigned or you have to appear in community court, your sentence is already carved out. It says you're going to pick up trash, you're going to do food service delivery, you're going to get some counseling, and your case will be dismissed. That's the rule for that court. 2 years later, they got Jonathan now in adult probation. For what? Phone harassment?
And I'd like to add into this that the assistant state's attorney at the Hartford Community Court, Thomas J. O'Brien, has been caught tampering with court documents. In the court action section, we have the documents before they were tampered with, and now we have the documents after they were tampered with added characters after the date stamp and the signature of the judge, which is a Class D felony in Connecticut.
And the thing that makes this even more strange, I actually flew up to Orlando because when I learned about Jonathan's case, being a former law enforcement and school administrator, I had to see this for myself. I just couldn't believe what the newspaper wrote. I've actually traveled up there 5 different times. When I saw in the court docket that Jonathan's name was on it, that he's going to be in front of a judge, John, 5 different times I flew up to Hartford, and 5 different times they canceled his hearing. How's that even possible? This is a misdemeanor. It's phone harassment. And then on my last trip, on my 6th trip, the last one I went up there, I actually got kicked out of the courtroom by 4 bailiffs. They actually kicked me literally out of the courtroom, and the courtroom wasn't even in session. There was no judge in there. I mean, they looked at me and they got me out of there, and they actually trespassed me, told me that I could never, ever, ever again show up in this courtroom. I'll go to jail. I mean, this is my life. I've been threatened everywhere I go in Connecticut.
Well,
And I'd like to mention one other thing. I had tried to establish a legal defense fund, which is a defendant's civil right to establish that. And it was directed to be shut down by the prosecutor. And after he even has it in his own handwriting in the state's attorney's file to have that legal defense fund removed. And that's just a violation of civil rights. And now when my attorney, Kay Wilson, had contacted Mr. O'Brien, he denies that took place.
Fellas, let me ask you this: what actually constitutes telephone harassment? I mean, if you call somebody names, say, "I'm going to come down there and kick your ass," or something like that, then I can see that's harassment. Some moron might be able to construe it as a terroristic threat. I've heard that one before, going all the way back to the '80s. But exactly, what do you have to do to be guilty of phone harassment? More than one call, ugly language. I mean, what?
Apparently, it's if someone tells you not to call once and a second call is placed, that is phone harassment, according to these individuals. However, the Connecticut State Police, in a report on March 10th, 2013, which was actually released as part of the full Sandy Hook report later that year after the arrest happened, states that no violation occurred and that they examined the phone calls in question. And they stated that the caller was asking questions about the media release policy of that office.
So I've come unstuck in my attempts to determine what makes this illegal in any way.
There were no illegal actions on my part. Even in the complaint itself, which is written in two separate handwritings.
Yeah.
They state that the wording was used by the complainant as "in trouble," and that I repeated that statement, and that's what they're saying constituted the harassment.
And naturally, Dr. Wayne Carver, he tells the Avon, Connecticut Police Department that he was in fear, for his family and his life. And there's nothing in any phone conversations, and they've all been recorded, to where there is any threats made. And again, the Connecticut State Police reports verifies that there were no threats and the case was closed. But yet they will not let go of it. They are hammering him every way possible. I mean, having to go to an adult probation officer for 2 years when nobody else in Hartford Community Court has ever been assigned a probation officer. How is it that John's being selected for this program?
Can't you go to isn't there a higher authority that you can appeal to and go, look, this is wrong, and maybe wind up with a suit against these people? I mean, who's supposed to cover your legal expenses? Who ever heard of $40,000 worth of expenses over a damn misdemeanor?
Now, John, I've got to say this. I actually recorded this, and thank God I did. When I was in the community court up there, when I heard from Jonathan after about my fourth or fifth trip, I heard that they had this $30,000 legal bill. I called up a criminal attorney named Aaron Field, and I don't mind saying the name because I only speak the truth, so she can verify it. I called her up to see if I could hire her because Pullman and Comley, this Alan Sobel, was not doing his job. When I called her up and I said, look, I really, really need some help for a friend of mine. He's been assigned community court. He was charged for a second-degree misdemeanor phone harassment. I need an attorney and I need somebody with teeth willing to help and fight for him. You know what she said to me, John?
No.
And I recorded it. She says, Mr. Halbig, when you're assigned to community court, you don't need an attorney. They've already decided your fate. When you're assigned to community court, you're already going to know that you're going to have to pick up trash for a week. You're going to get counseling. And if you do those things and you do them in a timely manner, they're going to do away with your arrest. I mean, how simple is that? And look where we are today. 2 years later, he's still got adult probation, $40,000 legal bill. They don't give him his documents. They refuse to release all of the documents under discovery, which you and I know, we have a right to see what's in our file. They refuse to give it to him.
Can you not drag this into federal court and demand that they do it?
John, we think that that's where this is heading, but I'd like to mention something else regarding the law firm of Pullman and Comley. After they were retained and failed to send legal counsel to the intake at the police department,
Yeah.
We discovered much later on that they actually are representing the complainants in this case as well, specifically a family from Durham, Connecticut, that's mentioned in the police report as an alternate victim. And this law firm has been raising the funds for Sandy Hook.
Oh, no
for the
conflict of
shooting
interest there.
victims. And we found out that this is just a huge conflict of interest. They refused to address it. They refused to refund the $40,000 in legal fees. And we're going to see how we're going to proceed with that.
You know, it makes you wonder, doesn't it make you wonder how any so-called justice is even possible when you have a corrupt apparatus like this? I mean, fellas, I was just looking over at this thing on DC Clothesline, and this is from February 14, Valentine's Day, 2014. And this is just a quick letter. At the time, in February of last year, puzzled by those strange 12/25/2009 sale date and zero price of Newtown homes, I sent this email to VGS. Now, VGS is Vision Government Solutions, a company that calls itself a leading supplier of land parcel management software, technology, and services to local government organizations, enabling efficient assessment, billing, collections, mapping, and permitting. So, hello. While browsing real estate properties using this database, I noticed a number of homes with the same date of sale of Christmas Day, 2009. It says 12/25/2009. And a sale price of zero. Please be so kind as to explain how can a home be sold or purchased for $0? Thank you, Dr. Blank. This was the response I received. Thank you for your inquiry, Dr. Blank. In most instances of a sale price of zero, the reason would be because of a family sale where the house ownership is simply transferred. In other words, no money actually changed hands. The other reason for that to happen would be a town entering a parcel into their database for the first time. They must put a first owner and sale price. Oftentimes, they will put $0 as a filler price. The sale date of 12/25/2009 would be the same thing. So all of these properties that somehow were sold with a sale price of zero in Newtown, Connecticut. I mean, this is the most extraordinarily transparent, in my opinion, this is the most extraordinarily transparent fraud. Transparent. In the
John,
history of this country.
I'm glad you brought that up because caravanners, if there's a realtor out there, broker, help us understand this. There's an address in Newtown, 3 Maple Drive. John, that house gets sold every month to a new owner. See, again, I'm listening to what you just said, you know, first sale, family members. But this house is 3 Maple Drive. It's sold every month. How do you sell the same house every month to a new person? Somebody's making a lot of money, but nobody's willing to explain it up there. When you contact them, they will not tell you what's going on. And again, Newtown, I remember when I was a customs agent, we were sitting there and, you know, we deal a lot with drugs, and we had a couple of guys, you know, they were snitches and they were wanting to get into the witness protection area. And one of the captains said, you know what's really strange? You guys need to go into a new town. You know what? Today I'm thinking Newtown, you need to go to a new town. Maybe Newtown is a witness protection haven. I mean, how many people can win the lottery 42 times, the same people? How can you sell the same house every month? I mean, there's something that's not right in Newtown. And I think the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, what's happening to Jonathan Reich in the court system. You know, Jonathan touched somebody's nerve when he questioned the medical examiner. And I think they didn't realize that, you know, they thought we were just going to go away. And we're not. We want the truth, and we're going to fight for it. We've contacted Gail Hardy. She is the state attorney. She is responsible for Thomas O'Brien. He's the assistant state attorney. We have written to her no less than 15 times. Not one response. We have written the Attorney General of Connecticut no less than 15 times. Not one response. We've written to a guy named Rob Kane, who's over judges. not one response. I have never in my lifetime, have seen people who don't even respond to letters or emails or return phone calls. Now that is just unbelievable.
The news agency out of Connecticut called Patch Media Corporation, and one of their journalists named Jessie Sawyer, who now works for NBC Connecticut, she was able to obtain the police report within 1 hour of the arrest. For 2 years, I have requested the police report from my attorney, Pullman and Comley, and from the prosecutor, and no one would provide it to me. They say it's a pending case, and we have all the documents from Kevin Kane's office, at the state's attorney in Connecticut. They will not provide the police report for a pending case. So the question is, how can a journalist obtain a police report that the defendant can't obtain for 2 years when the state's attorney says it's not public information?
Oh, this is just weird. Well, let me. Okay, then here goes Mr. Broken Record here. Where do you imagine you can get some actual justice here? Because obviously this is wrong. Obviously this is illegal, and obviously somebody's got something to hide. And I'm just wondering how far up the chain the cover-up is liable to go. Because once it's,
John, I'm just sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the question would be, and I think I'm so glad to be on your show today, Jonathan, is you got so many people out there with so much experience, all these caravanners. I mean, many of them are baby boomers. I mean, what if this was your son? What would you do? Where would you go with this? I mean, we have done everything professionally. We've been very courteous. And I think, as you said earlier, I think now the only place we've got left is go into the federal court system. This is corruption at the highest level. It's malfeasance. I mean, they're violating all of his constitutional rights. And I've never seen a state from Governor Malloy down just violates the law. And they're doing it intentionally. And what they're saying, well, what are you going to do about it? So you raise a good question.
I have to tell you, this just makes me sick. It really does. I can't imagine something like this. Sounds like the Court of Kangaroos down in some banana dumbass republic somewhere in Congo or something. This is or Soviet Russia or China or some crazy thing like this. And look, we've seen these. Look, this is American culture, so I have to use American cultural components. But seriously, how many times have we seen these old black and white motion pictures, even going into the film noir? Where justice is denied because the system is rigged and it's rigged and it's rigged and it's rigged. No, they've got to protect themselves, and they've got to protect the people who protect them. But somehow there is, unless it's a really depressing piece of film noir, there is some triumph at the end. But it's one thing when you're watching a movie and it's the study of some isolated incident that occurred, or it's an extrapolation maybe they made it a little bit worse than it really was. It's based on a true story, but tarted up a little bit for the movie watching audience. But this is just plain weird, and these people just keep pushing it. But then again, I'll be picking on the president of this country from now until he's relegated to the dustbins of history. But when the country is corrupt, from the top officials down through the banking officials, down through the courts, you got the Supreme Court taking up cases they had no business taking up. You got the Supreme Court saying, oh, well, your Obamacare, it's illegal under the Commerce Clause, but you could make it a tax. Okay. When marriage at all is a state issue, because that's why they issue licenses to get married, licenses to catch a fish, licenses to hunt a deer, Licenses to hunt birds. Well, it's a state issue. So where does the Supreme Court come in demanding that homosexuals be married? And if you try to keep them out of a church, you're in for some real trouble. This country is really sliding further and further down the toilet. And I got to tell you something, I really believe, and I'm not grandstanding here either, this Sandy Hook deal, this is one battle that had damned well better be won. Because if it is not won, then you'll know that the rest of it is lost as well.